Hey everyone, welcome to Atomo. It is Sunday, January 15th. I got some shenanigans, but also gonna put it as a bit of a let's call this an informational session on the clean cooking, uh, kind of some of that stuff that has come up recently. So let me just pull this up here. Get the screen share going. All right. So, because you have to kind of hang out with the lizard people to figure out what they're doing, the World Economic Forum stuff, you can actually get a free membership to it. I'm surprised at how much it costs, how much you have to pay the lizard people in order to use their services. Um, but this is just a way that when some trends start to come forward, you can kind of see some of the genesis here. Like some people, you can go to 4chan, you can go to /poll and find some stuff out, or actually come here. This was the first one that I saw while I was looking through here, kind of made me chuckle a little bit. Through the Russian looking glass. While Russia's economy is crumbling under the weight of Western sanctions, some countries' leading economists are advocating a return to Soviet style central planning. Will the violent wave of expropriation Russia has unleashed on Ukraine be unleashed at home as well? No. And I was looking at this and just go through YouTube, do some searches for yourself. There's YouTube vloggers that are walking through malls in different parts of Russia and doing, like, if you see on the image here, it looks like there's a bunch of empty shelves. Oh my God. This is not this is not unknown in supermarkets where, okay, we're changing up some of the products, got new shipments coming in, we're moving stuff around, and whoa, look, somebody found and we found the one empty area in all of Moscow. We're going to take a picture of that and send it out. It's like, we're running out of food. Then you go to the YouTube videos and people are walking around normal. There's like shelves all over the place. And I'm surprised at the how cheap the food is. You can fill a basket for Canadian dollars. You can fill a basket for like $40 Canadian, and even put some good stuff in there. Now, like that would be in Russia. Here in Canada, where I'm at, it can be up to $100 now to fill one of these little baskets. Like, oh my God! And yet here some of the problems that are happening is when government starts to get in your stuff, and then that starts to create a whole bunch of problems. So that's I thought that's a bit of shenanigans going on there. If you have different evidence, I'm happy to see that, but I just went trolling through to see if I can find some complaints of people saying, hey, look at our shelves here in Russia, even on Telegram channels and other things. If it were a significant problem, it would be coming up quite a bit more. And of course, Western media would be jumping all over it and sending in their people to have a look see and show all the empty shelves. So, but what I really wanted to get into on this one is um, getting into, let's slide this one over here, getting into the one, there it is. We saw the bans on gas stove. And so the trial balloon was floated, and then the backlash happened. And, well, we didn't really mean that. We didn't really mean that. And you had AOC sitting like blah, 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 about the stoves and the emissions and the gases that it can produce indoors. Yet right behind her was a gas stove. I don't have that picture handy, but I just saw it as I was doing some research on this. and some people were calling shenanigans on that one. But the idea here, and there's some truth and seriousness to this, but there's also the good old dystopian angle on this that definitely because these creatures here, this World Economic Forum, they want a global governance. That's their goal with the UN, with the IMF. They want a global governance apparatus to be running. They really don't like the populist type stuff. They feel it's inefficient. And as anything has shown us in the at least the 20th century, that central planning just falls apart. It's a Tower of Babel. You don't get the what you specifically get when you're allowing your free markets is you get your price signals that tell you how efficient you're actually moving. And then what happens is when some organizations become apex predators, like they hit the top of the top of the top, and then big disruptions like COVID, we saw that huge disruptions come in. And these organizations, since they've been at the top for so long, entropy just tears them apart. They do not know how to innovate anymore. They don't know how to build relationships with other smaller entities and build like a loose federation. And even some of those smaller entities are gone, especially during World War II. How was it that we could produce a lot of items so fast? Because your supply chains were not so lean. They're actual, it was atomicized a bit, meaning, you know, your dude at the hardware store, you got a tin banger down the road, or you have some other folks doing, you know, small end machine work, and they got a machine garage that you can put all this together and incentivize them to provide, you know, tools, equipment, parts, or whatnot for the war effort. But if you have like a really big assembly line, which is great for building some sort of widget, but if anything around that assembly line starts to break down, it becomes inefficient really fast. Okay. So going back to this, well, what is this all about? So the idea is that it's not, part of it is the energy use. So this article here puts a lot of claims that, well, there's only so much energy that gets converted into your food. Here they're giving you some numbers saying, oh, an electric range, 74% of the energy produced is transferred to the food, compared to just 40% when it comes to its gas counterpart. Okay, I don't have scientific instruments to determine whether that's correct or not, because also what I'm not seeing here is, well, if you use an electric range, one of the things that takes so long to heat your food, that the type of cooking is different. Like I could be done, especially if I do a stir fry over gas, that gas heats my pan up pretty quick. Then I can get the good sear and cook in the food. It takes about 5 minutes. Boom, turn it off, and gas is right off. And I got cooked food really quick. I just have to use a little more prep time to get there. Now, the induction cooktops, say 90% of the energy is transferred to food. Yes, those heat up really, really fast. With these funky induction cooktops and the type of, I think you can't use aluminium, but you can use steel and iron pans and pots and whatnot on it. But you still have to have very specific cooking instruments that work with the stove, plus the fact that you have to build out your kitchen for that particular stove, make sure you got the appropriate electric junctions all set up. Now, there's quite a bit of work in order to get that to happen, especially if you've been configured for maybe a smaller gas stove footprint within your place. And even some, as places get smaller, it's harder. Well, you might have an induction cooktop or kind of a plate, an induction plate could be a possibility, but you'll own nothing and be happy, and maybe all you'll have in your kitchen is just no stove, hardly any cupboards, and you have to pull in this induction cooktop down and cook on it, and that's all you get. So there are some important things. So let's go over the important things. Is in other places around the world, yes, this is a problem. Air pollution in cooking, because if you're still cooking with charcoal or cooking with wood, now I know they're talking about having your emissions inside the house. Now there's part that's not being said is, well, how do we vent the emissions? And a lot of the places where I go in Thailand, they don't have a lot of money, but they really know about how to vent. And usually the houses have kind of there's the house area, but then there's a kitchen. The kitchen is attached to the house, but it's different. The kitchen is almost like a different area in the house. Usually it doesn't lock up as tight. There's more natural airflow that goes through it, so that when you do cook, when the emissions rise, your house is not completely sealed. There's openings that go right out into the air, because like Thailand, for example, is a tropical country, so they don't have to worry about freezing their nads off in the wintertime. So those emissions can exit appropriately out of the house. In some places, doesn't work like that. So yes, I can see where this would be important for some people to get out of burning wood and charcoal into a different type of burning wood, charcoal, kerosene. Okay, some places they actually use propane, but it just gets to the point where, well, electrical in some of these places in the world are getting electrical for 24, like just 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and it's there all the time. No. Plus, some places in the world, the electric is very expensive because you have to get it lined out into the village, and then just at per unit equivalent, it's easier just to call up your propane provider, and lo and behold, they arrive with the tanks on the back of the motorcycle, or they got like a sidecar. They drive in and they got propane tanks in the sidecar, and they'll give you a new propane tank and swap out your old one, and you pay like $10 or something for like these big propane tanks that can last you for a couple weeks or a month. It depends on how often that you're cooking, and if you have friends over, it takes a bit more. But that's what they get into now. The big thing is getting into the household air pollution. And here's the thing: is now they're taking, well, COVID-19, I guess, has a higher impact when there's something like household air pollution. So now we're kind of digging into why the gas stove banning talk has popped up, because this is the thing that's coming up now. This clean cooking is rearing its head. Well, we had the COVID thing, and we got the war on the periodic table. We can't grow food with certain elements. We've got to reduce the amount of nitrogen. It's causing pollution. Can't have carbon. That's nasty. It's going to destroy the world. We need a little more science on this. Like, that's just how much that us puny little humans are doing are actually impacting the world, when there's been all kinds of events across the timeline, especially big volcanoes blowing up or meteors hitting the world. Dinosaurs lived in a very lush time. If you go and do some of the research on that, it was hotter. It was definitely, the weather was warmer, but it was a lot more lush. I believe there was more CO2 in the air back at the time. But I haven't done a lot, just done the surface level look as some research into this, realizing that the Earth was quite had a lot of stuff on it when the dinosaurs roamed the Earth, a lot of vegetation. Of course, there was an ice age and all that, and that changed things. So again, the world got a lot cooler. Imagine that. There are cycles, but these cycles transcend the length of time that we live. Okay, so what else we have going on here? Before I get into this one, this was interesting. Yeah, experts explore the relationship between household air pollution exposure and COVID-19. So they're asking a lot of questions here. So essentially, I do a lot of project work, and one of the things is coming up with a hypothesis and trying to prove out the hypothesis. And what worries me is that, well, dang it, we're going to figure out how to actually do this and to create the connection between COVID-19 and your household air quality. Okay, I was on a roll, got interrupted there. Traditional family, sometimes the kids wake up, get a little sick, have to take care of them. So, where was I going with this? I was talking about the wanting to put, and of course it's my Zoom is doing stuff. Okay. All right. So just to close this out, here's the shenanigans that can potentially start happening. With, of course, look at the CO2 emissions graphs here. Looks like China has a bit of work to do. Be it as it may, all the West is going to have to pick up the slack for that one, huh? Anyhow, let me stop the share. So here's a thought: is with a thought or with the idea that there might be connections between indoor air quality and health, even though I have not seen significant, the most that I've seen in my lifetime since I'm a Gen Xer is indoor air quality dealing with smoking. Going after the gas stoves is a bit of it's just more government getting into your face. It doesn't hit the actual problem. One is ventilation, ensuring that your air quality has, or your home has significant enough ventilation. You got a fume hood over your stove area, and that blows the air to the outside. I know some older apartments, they don't have that. It's just the air goes up into the hood and gets blown back out into the unit. That can cause problems, especially if the filters on those are not particularly good. And if you do have strong filters, then you have to clean them quite a bit. So there's maintenance to be done, definitely. But it's the more dystopian thing is when governments are going to legislate that homes have to have air sensors. And if I go into the really weird space of, we know the joke about eating your bugs. If it gets to that point where you're rationed to, well, you bought meat 2 times this week, okay, well, that's your limit. But if your air quality sensor detects you, hey, you cooked meat 5 times this week, shame on you. Or as Greta Thunberg would say, how dare you cooking meat 5 times, and get the what ministry would that be in 1984? I don't know. I'll have to make one up. The Ministry of Happy Home or something like that. That sounds doesn't sound Orwellian enough. The Ministry of the Blissful Household or something like that would be knocking on your door and wondering what the heck's going on, and maybe commit you, take away all your meat rations, especially if that sensor is detecting things that it shouldn't be sensing. Well, then you're in trouble, bucko, and the knock at the door is going to come, and then you how do you so here's the thing is, so how do you run these particular gulag economies if everything's highly centralized? What happens is that the efficiency and effectiveness of the system over time actually drops. One of the things that keeps people working efficiently and effectively is when they know that the efforts that they put in are going to get rewarded in some way. And what I've seen in some documentaries about the latter part of the Soviet Union, especially when Stalin and Khrushchev and all those people, especially after Stalin, when there wasn't a gun, if you step out to the left or step out to the right the wrong way, then bang, you're shot. That's the way it was. Then when that went away, and now it was like, well, if I do my job, regardless of how well I do my job, I'm still going to get my rice cake at the end of the day. So, I'm just going to sit, do the crossword puzzle, or they didn't have them back at that time. But nowadays, if you think about it, I'm just going to sit there and browse on my phone. And especially if you're one of the chosen races, that that's above the law, then you can do all that you want, and then nothing's going to get done, but you're still going to get your stuff. But then the economy is just going to keep going down. Yeah. I'm on a bit on a tangent here. I made the points about the clean air in the house and all that. We're just setting up the dystopian type future where these centralized governments need bodies working on the cheap. And right now, those bodies for the West are in China and other places where the wages are significantly less. Yeah, even the woke Nike and all those other organizations use that labor out in other countries to build the products because they build them cheaper and have massive markups on them, and then throw all this woke stuff all over the place saying how goody they are about what they're doing. But if we magnify this to global scales, then there's going to have to be a level of incarceration in order to maintain these systems. You're going to have a lot less stuff. Like, again, as I say, you'll own nothing and be happy. There'll be a lot less stuff. There, people won't be working as hard. Innovation's going to go into the dumps. And what's one of the things that is important here is, well, how do we get off this earth as a human species? Because we only have one planet. Well, that's KPI, key planet risk. That's key person risk. Or the KPR, key person risk or key planet risk. If anything happens to the planet, well, the planet's usually okay. The planet doesn't care about climate change. It's just people that potentially get impacted by climate change. Basically your stuff gets disrupted. Statue of Liberty is not yet underwater, so that's one thing. I don't even think that's a good thing to check. Check Ellis Island and see if Ellis Island has sunk. If it hasn't sunk, then it should have sunk by now, based on all the climate emergency talk over the last couple decades. So I guess where I'll land us for now is when all of this big brother stuff comes into play, and we got the technology for it, then you make the wrong move, do the wrong thing, cook the wrong stuff, then you'll get a talking to, and then next thing you know it, you'll be a part of the prison complex needed to run these systems. Understand what's going on.